Una Mae, where are you from?
I'm originally from St. Jacob.
Okay. And what?
Highland was our main town for getting groceries and things. And St. Jacob, we went to church. And Trenton, we went to the doctor.
Okay, okay. And if you don't mind, what year were you born? If you don't have to
What
say.
year was I born?
Yeah, you can lie.
1934.
1934. Okay, thank you.
Spring chicken.
Just a kid, isn't she?
Just a spring chicken.
She's just a spring chicken, that's right. Okay, so you want to read your question and
It says, what were your favorite childhood games? Well, my favorite, we called it rabbit. And my brothers and sisters were all a lot older than me, and we always had to go out and play games. Well, I had to be the rabbit because I was the youngest.
You girl.
that's a, and so what would you just run away from him
I
and
had to
hide?
hide,
Oh, really?
and I could hide in good places. They couldn't find me.
That's a great.
You were a good rabbit.
We had a culvert. We had a road goes past our house, and we had a culvert at the about behind the barn
Yeah.
on the main road. And I always go down and crawl underneath the culvert and hide in there, and they couldn't find me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What would they do? What would they do when they couldn't find you? Would they,
Well, then
they
they
yell?
say, well, come out now, we know you're hiding somewhere. We had a culvert on both sides of the road, I mean, on this way and that way, and they never knew which way I'd be. And they'd go hunting for me, and I was little enough that I could crawl way in there and they couldn't see me.
Oh, really?
How many
Oh,
siblings did you have?
Huh?
How many siblings did you have?
Well, my brother was 19 when I was born.
Oh my, that's
And
worse
my-
than Larry.
yeah, that's it.
Brenda was 16. I thought that was something.
Well, my brother was 19, my sister was 17, and I had a sister that was 13 and one that was 12 when I was born.
All the way down, huh?
Yeah. So I
Oh,
was
and
kind
they
of,
doted on you then,
Huh?
didn't they? I said, they doted on you then.
Oh,
Ain't
yes,
nobody
yes.
young like that.
the only thing I
Yeah.
was really mad at my brother is when we got married, I was 4 years old. I wanted to be flower girl on his wedding, and my new sister-in-law said, no way. So I said, okay.
Well, she'd have made it interesting. Larry made Brenda's wedding very interesting.
Really? What did he
Waved
do?
at everybody down after he got up there.
Mm-hmm.
They reminded him he had 50 cents here for him to stand. He said, oh yeah, he was 5. He knew what he was doing.
Oh.
He goes over and gets the money, waves it to everybody and shows them his money. You know, they finally quieted him down and had the wedding.
Oh, did they? Well, you probably had a lot of babysitters then. You didn't, your brothers and sisters babysat you then when you're
Not
young.
really.
No, they didn't. They
I
weren't.
thought you'd be good and spoiled.
No,
You
in
was-
fact, they were, when I was 4 or 5 years old, they were all
Yeah,
gone from home.
They were gone.
And, except my younger one, she was 18 when I was 4 years old. Anyway, she got married, and I wanted to be in her wedding. She wouldn't have me in her wedding. But anyway, I had helped Dad out in the field, and I had helped Mom on the weekends, clean the house, and help her in the house and that, so, because they were all gone, so.
So you grew up on a farm, I guess.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up and lived in the farm all my life. I
Really?
never did live in town.
Wow.
I'm curious, when you were the rabbit, did you ever run into any other critters when you were hiding?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Awesome.
I'm sure you did.
Did you really? Wow. Well, you probably weren't afraid of them either, were you?
No, no.
Yeah. There's much part
When
of
I
them.
used to help my dad out in the field, he cultivated with a 2-year-old cultivator and a pair of horses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd ride on the back of the cultivator, and if he covers one up, I had to jump off and uncover it, and I'd get back on the cultivator again.
Really? Well, great. Thank you very much. So and do I call you Una or Una Mae? Okay, Una Mae. All right. Our next, you ready? You want to try it?
It's
And who do we have here?
Henrietta.
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 Okay. Yeah,
Henrietta Knable.
these cards are sticky today. I don't know where they've been.
Where did you grow up?
Well, about 7 miles east of Highland,
Mm-hmm.
on a farm.
What was your childhood like?
Well, I had 2 brothers. One was 12 when I was born, and the other one was 8.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only girl.
Oh my.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you were you the youngest one, you said?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
I was the youngest
So
one.
you were the rabbit too, right? Yeah. Yeah. So what else do you remember about your childhood? What was it like around your house when you were a child?
Well, we lived on a farm, and it was during the Depression, and I guess like everybody else, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We went to country school,
Mm-hmm.
then I went to high school, and I graduated from grade school, and I went to Highland High School,
Mm-hmm. So, and what year were you born?
1927.
Okay.
That's my year.
It's a good year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what do you remember the most about the Depression?
Well, everybody was poor, I guess,
Right.
you know,
We're all in
and,
the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, Mom made most of the clothes for the kids, for us kids,
Mm-hmm.
and, we went to country school. Towards last, there was only 2, 3 students there. So when we got to high school, that was quite a, quite a shock.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you remember how many kids were in your class in high school? Was
I think 45.
okay for the whole for the
In
senior
45.
class.
We graduated in 45.
Mhm.
Wow.
And you, my brother was 44.
Mhm.
I thought maybe you knew my brother, but he graduated in 44. So
Oh, I probably knew him, but I
I don't remember him.
Where did that put your farm? You said about 7 miles east?
Yes, on Michael Road,
Okay.
straight out.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
We're at the corner of Bond and Clinton.
Oh, right there at the county line, huh?
Yeah. Mhm.
What did your dad do for a living?
Farming.
He was a farmer, a full-time farmer.
Mhm.
Okay. So
That's all he ever did. was
that's
farm.
that's amazing. Well, that's a lot of work.
Farmers around here.
Yeah, we
haven't
do, we do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's incredible. That's and the amount of
But
work.
when I was 3 years old, they moved to a house that was fairly modern. They bought another farm. a
Did they?
different farm, and we had Delco system till our REA came in, and then we had electricity
What's Delco? Is that like a
with batteries.
batteries?
Batteries.
Okay,
That's the name of the battery.
okay.
Delco,
I've heard
Delco was
batteries
around
for
then
cars,
too.
Yeah.
Delco's
Goes
been
way
around.
back.
It sure does. So, what did you run with the Delco? Did they plug your
It had batteries, you know.
for electricity for your lights and?
And yeah, and you could wash with it, and you could iron,
Huh.
Okay.
It's a pretty good system.
but,
Yeah.
but the iron used a lot of
Yeah.
power.
Do you remember how did they have a generator to charge the batteries, or how'd they
There
charge
was a
it?
thing we had a concrete cellar, and that was our storm cellar underneath
Uh-huh.
the porch, and that had battery, you know, in
You know,
there.
right
And
back
then
to
you-
batteries.
Whenever we wanted to wash, you had to start that motor up,
Okay,
Mhm.
you know, for
Yeah.
that. And that charged the battery enough for
Okay.
another week.
So
little gas-powered generator of some kind back then, or something.
oh yeah, I guess it had to be gas powered.
Something
Yeah.
to charge those batteries up, yeah.
And you could tell the way the batteries, how that egg or something moved in there,
Really?
how strong the battery was.
Wow. That's neat.
It is. That's something else I didn't realize that there were batteries back
Yeah, I've
then.
never,
Yeah,
Never heard of that.
Carl Bosler
Okay.
was some of the ones that furnished the batteries.
okay.
You remember what year that was that did you had batteries?
As long as I can remember,
Back-
it was there when we bought
So-
the place.
Okay,
Had these modern advancements.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll talk about modern. Yeah, we'll get back to that.
and we could pump water with a motor too,
Okay,
with it.
wow.
that had to be a powerful battery.
Mhm.
I wonder what one of those would even look like.
Yeah,
I'd
I can imagine.
love to have
And
a
it would have
picture.
been old lead, probably big battery.
Big battery, and I bet the generator was pretty loud and
Yeah.
cranking those things out.
And I don't know, we had like a cistern on the west side of the house, and that's where the sound went in that cistern, like,
Okay.
from the basement.
Really,
That's interesting.
they ran a lot. Where were where's your family from originally? Where were your grandparents from?
My grandmother came over from Germany.
Germany.
She was 6 or 7 years old,
Mm-hmm.
mostly from Germany.
Okay.
And on my mother's side, some was from Switzerland.
Okay. That seems to be very common. That
Yeah.
it's either Switzerland or Germany.
Yeah.
Is
Right
anybody's
around
family
there.
from anywhere but Switzerland or Germany?
My mother was from England.
From England.
Her family, not she.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Not she,
Really?
but I got pictures of her grandfather. He was a school teacher, but he came from England.
Oh, really? That's really there's a resemblance with you. You have I can tell by you look like you have English in your
Think I do?
yeah.
You speak it very well.
I speak it.
You speak it very no actually you speak English very no you actually you have
Although, I've been meaning to butt in on her, let her finish her.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I think we were pretty much ready to, thank you very much for sharing. And I'm sorry, what was your name again? So I have
Henrietta Knable.
Henrietta. Okay, great. Thank you. You can toss that back over to me. Okay.
You were talking about going to school. I went to country school, and when I graduated from the 8th grade, they closed all the country schools and took them into town. That was in 1948.
Really? So in the town meaning Highland?
No, around St. Jacob.
Oh, St. Jacob
Baptist
had it.
School, Fry School, Virgin School, all the schools that were around
Uh-huh.
the block. They closed the schools in 48 and sent them all to St. Jacob.
And those were little one-room schoolhouses around
Yeah,
there?
yeah, that's
I went
interesting.
through all 8 grades by myself. I never had a classmate.
Oh,
Through 8th
Did you have
grade.
to go to class at the school that would
Well,
sit there?
the teacher, I helped the teacher with the students. She only had like 10 or 12 students.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I was the only one, when I was in the 6th,
Yeah.
7th, and 8th grade, I helped the littler kids learn how to read and read with them and help them with their math and stuff and that, but she was busy with the other ones.
Oh, wow.
But
That's
it
all
was,
right.
there was only 14 or 15 kids in the whole school.
Mm-hmm.
I went through all 8 grades by myself. I never had a classmate.
Wow. And so how far away from your house was the school?
Well, there was a country block, and the schoolhouse was on this side of the block, and we lived on this side of the block.
Mm-hmm.
It was 5 miles to go around that way, and it was 6 miles to go around this way. So
That's a
I
big
cut through the
block.
field. Cut through the field, it was not even 2 miles.
Oh, not even 2 miles. How many kids today would walk not even 2
I know.
miles?
My mom did too, walked, in the winter, she said it was so, snow was high up, they'd walk over the fence tops.
Yeah.
It
And
was
when it
that
was
high.
thick, when it was thick ice, my dad took a cane and put a nail in the bottom of the cane, and I'd use that to walk to school, because I wouldn't slip and fall.
Did you walk with anyone else or did you walk
No.
but
No, there was nobody else.
Heck,
They
you
all
could've
lived around the
fallen in a
block.
snowdrift.
They all lived around the block, see, and
Yeah.
they'd walk their way and they'd walk this way.
School had to be within walking distance. That's how they had to do it
Yeah,
in those earlier
yeah.
days, yeah.
wow.
You know, every block had a schoolhouse. Like this block here had the
Oh.
fair school. Then the block over here had the Fry School. And the one over there had the Virgin School. I mean, every block had a school. And the kids that lived on that block went to that school.
Okay.
Isn't that
And
different?
it's about a 5-mile
Yeah.
A 5 mile, yeah, that block is not like it would be, but still.
And of course, in those days, they had big families. The Snyder family had 9 kids. So that pretty well took up most of the school.
Yeah, that took care of that school.
They could stay home and have school at their house.
Yeah, homeschool those.
That sounds like a lot of this is goes back to what today's homeschooling.
Yeah.
So now I wonder who paid for the schools. I mean, back then,
The taxes,
the taxes and the state, you know,
County, I imagine.
the county,
county taxes, yeah.
Yeah, things are probably a lot more local back then, everything.
the local counties paid for the local schools.
We didn't get no state aid.
No, and the teachers, they lived usually with the family,
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
they?
yeah, Mrs. DeForest was I had her for 4 years, but my first grade teacher was Mrs. Ferris, and she lived just a block, on the block in the corner over there. And my second grade teacher was Mrs. Wilhelm, and she lived on the corner of the block on that side.
Mhm.
But then Mrs. DeForest, when she taught me the last 4 years, why, she lived, about a mile away. She'd walk to school a lot.
Wow.
And you had school no matter how bad the weather was.
Yeah.
So
they
there
were
no-
with the, blizzard or not,
Oh, yeah.
blizzard is over you came.
Well, that's really interesting too because they didn't have radar weather either.
No.
Doppler or so nowadays kids see the radar and they think, oh, we won't have school because it's supposed to snow tomorrow.
Well, we didn't have electricity until I was 8 years old.
Wow. So, well, that's
And they had to do all the cleaning and they had everything.
You know,
The
they're
teacher,
on
the
private
teacher
road.
shoveled the snow, she washed the blackboards, and she dusted the desks, and she mopped the floor and that. I mean, teacher took care of everything. There was no janitor or anything
Oh,
like that.
heavens.
they didn't really.
Yeah.
That's
On
right.
Trenton Road, there's a house that was a schoolhouse and
Mhm.
somebody bought it
Uh-huh.
and they've added on to it And I always marvel about it when I go by, because it's so nice. And then they built a garage and all kinds of stuff, and made it, you know, a house with everything that you needed.
Well, the
And it was a
schoolhouse that I went to
schoolhouse
was
at one time.
A family bought it, and they remodeled it,
Mm-hmm.
and put a garage. In fact, the underground cellar where we had to go when there was a storm,
Mhm.
that's still there yet. There's just a little bit of the concrete sticking out of the ground, but you had to go down to go in the door, and they had benches on both sides where you sat
Hmm.
when you had a storm.
So,
Where we live too, out there.
And it's still there yet.
and it's still there.
Yeah, I go by every once in a while, yeah. People have bought it, and they remodeled it. It still looks like a schoolhouse, got the same.
Yeah, and you can see the
Yeah.
big building, but it's really nice today.
Yeah.
Is that schoolhouse
Mhm.
still going, that the Wader family used to give tours out, is that still, schoolhouse still out there? The family bought a schoolhouse and fixed it up like it would be, it had been.
Oh, they do? What do they do with
I took
the schoolhouses now? Do they,
They call it Dex Prairie, did you ever hear of that? That's where I was born.
okay, that sounded
Dex
familiar.
Prairie.
Okay.
It's between Marine and Highland.
Okay,
Okay, and out there, there was a school, and they called it the Geiger School. And that is still there yet today. And the Wader family here in town own it. And so they, of course, keep it up, and they take tours through there yet today.
mm-hmm. Oh, they do, so it's a
Yes, they
museum.
do. Mhm.
Wow.
You can go through it yet today.
I wonder,
But I went all 8th grade there. And then it's funny because I'll never know for sure how this happened, but by rights then I was supposed to go to, back then I guess Triad was first coming because it was a ring. But
Oh.
somehow or another, my dad was always on the board, and I don't know, but I went to Highland High School.
because he wanted you to go to Highland High School?
Yeah, it was a little closer, you know, and
Yeah,
everything, and
yeah. So,
I tell you a funny thing, my mom and her sisters, they always had in their lunch pails, or whatever you wanna call them, sandwiches, and it was always apple butter sandwiches. And to this day, they'd always say, "No, I don't wanna see any apple butter, we ate enough when we were kids." But the people that went to school that had more money,
Mhm.
and they had cookies, you know, and everything, so they would exchange. The richer kids wanted their apple butter sandwiches, and the other ones would take the cookies.
well, yeah, I guess they still do that today too.
I
Kids
guess.
change
Yeah,
lunches. Your
yeah.
parents probably don't want you to, but you do. That's an interesting question. What other kind of lunch? What did you eat for lunch in school when you were young? You remember what you know? Was it peanut butter? I remember peanut
I never
butter.
took my lunch, I went home every day at noon, or there was a little lunchroom, you could buy a sandwich or a
Mhm.
bowl of soup or something.
So you did.
But I went home every day.
Okay.
I had to walk a mile.
Remember?
You had to go home at noontime. I went to Catholic school, and one nun would stay out, you know, and let the kids play and that, and the others would go in to eat. So you had to go home, unless you were a country child and brought your lunch. And I'd walk home a mile and eat lunch, and then walk back a mile. You had an hour.
Wow.
Hmm.
To me, that's you know, just the thought of that, it has to, you know, just the amount of time it takes you to get home
Mm-hmm.
and then get back to school.
And school
So,
started at 8 and didn't get out till 4.
Yeah, that's
Didn't
it.
really, okay. So when did they start serving lunchroom cafeterias? I mean, that's eventually that came in
Well, I
later.
was in high school, and we didn't have a cafeteria.
And not even in high school?
Mhm.
What
Yeah,
high school did you go
I graduated
to?
in 1945, and we didn't have a cafeteria. We'd take our lunch and we'd sit in the bleachers and eat our lunch, and they'd have maybe some soda if you wanted to buy soda or candy bars, you know,
Yeah.
or something. Because I always kept a quarter with me. And I would get a soda maybe on a Friday, because we ate peanut butter and jelly, or
Yeah.
else cheese or something. And
Homemade summer sausage.
yeah.
Oh, summer sausage, that had to be
Homemade
Mhm.
summer sausage.
homemade. Then.
Mhm.
Now that's a,
That would be good.
yeah, we're always smoking in the we
Mhm.
had a wash house, and had a big kettle in it, and that's where Mom heated her water to do the laundry. But then Dad would smoke the sausage in the loft up above. I have to
Really?
crawl up the steps and see if it was ready or not.
Did you
It's a
really?
delicacy now, that summer sausage.
Yeah.
That's expensive. That's it. Yeah, you buy it at a grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, you probably had to be. You were pretty popular at school then, if you
Oh,
made
yeah.
some. Yeah. So, very interesting stuff.
For jelly bread, I think a lot of people, I think parents made jelly and
Oh, yeah.
jams and
Jelly
that,
all the
and they
time.
had that for sandwiches, I
Yeah.
think, too.
Peach and cherry and strawberry, all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Now we like it too, don't we?
Wow. Well, you had to be pretty hungry if you were walking all that distance to school.
I mean, today, if kids go 3 blocks, you have to take them. I mean, I walked a mile.
Oh, no.
My
Yeah.
dad took me in the morning, and then when I was about 3rd or 4th grade, I got a 2-wheel bike, and so I rode my bike
Oh.
to school. And then, I'd walk home at noon, and then walk back. I mean, a mile, and then just have a sandwich or something, and then a mile back. But, my dad used to laugh. Well, he said, they got the buses now, so he said, they have to build the gymnasiums so the kids get exercise. Otherwise, they walked all the time.
That makes perfect sense. That's because the gymnasiums, the gym class was
Yeah.
for exercise. When for all the kids that didn't get
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Well, most of the kids had Karo syrup buckets for lunch buckets.
I had
Yeah.
one, and I couldn't get when I did take my lunch, I couldn't get the lid off. Yeah, and I had to, I still can't get lids off of stuff,
Really?
But I had to go around the cafeteria and look for my brother to get the lid off of my
Oh, did you?
Karo syrup. And we didn't use that only bad weather or something. Did we take something? I don't remember what was in it when I got in there. But I just remember that Karo syrup. I wish I still had it.
Yeah, it'd
Wow.
be worth a lot of money, honey.
Yeah.
And then, my dad ordered some mineral from Mormon Minerals for
Mhm.
the cattle. And the prize was a lunch bucket, so I got a lunch bucket then, with a thermos jug, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That, and you remember that. I could tell that was exciting too. That's, yeah. At least when I went to, I do remember the lunch buckets. And do they even have lunch buckets anymore where
Oh, sure.
you put your thermos in there and
I don't know, do they have them anymore
know,
like that? I
you get-
never,
I
I'll
don't
tell you
think-
what, when I sold my things to go out, come out here, the boys had Rye Rogers lunch box with a thermos in it. And my daughter's calling me from the sale, I didn't go, and she said, you'll never guess what, they're fighting over that Roy Rogers lunch box, and it's up to $145. I said, they're crazy.
That-
I mean, that thing probably cost about $1.50 or
Exactly.
$2.
That's, but you know
Yeah.
what? We talk about history. That's a piece of
Yeah.
history right there.
Yeah.
You
For
know.
$145 it went for. And then my table and chairs, I had a wooden table and chairs and 2 leaves in for the table and 6 chairs and one was a captain's chair. Got $125 for all of that. Didn't have a scratch on it or anything.
Wow.
Because they say, well, the people today, the young people don't eat meals anymore together. And they don't want dishes because, they use paper plates. And they don't, entertain, when we had Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving, we'd get nice things out and set the table and with a nice tablecloth.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
No, that's another. That's, the family dinner.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
When we first started these sessions, we talked about our family dinners on the Sunday dinners. I wonder if kids. I guess.
They don't have that anymore.
Well, in today's households, though, there's usually someone working on the weekends.
Fast food. It's fast food.
Exactly. There's fast food. I'm curious. I'd like to go to the local high school sometime and just visit and see what their cafeterias look like.
I don't know.
But their food is a lot nicer than what we ever had.
Oh, yeah. We never, like I said, even from Edwardsville High School, I
Yeah.
graduated in 1945, we did not have a cafeteria.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, so it was Edwardsville that didn't have the cafeteria then. Yeah. Now, my grandson goes to SIUE. He just checked in, for his first semester. But I asked, just curious, I said, what's their cafeteria look like at SIUE, the college? And I remember when I went to college, it's just a buffet. You eat what they served you, right?
Yeah.
Now at SIUE, there's Chick-fil-A, there's restaurants. You get to
Lord
choose restaurants for your lunch. And they all go
I
to.
don't know.
I know. So it's a different world. Oh well, I learn something every day, don't
Yeah.
we? Well, Betty, now it's your turn to draw a card, and you can draw. If you don't like the card you get, you can draw another one.
This is something I've had before.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If you've had a card before, we'll just pick something else.
Tell us about your cousins.
Oh, tell us something
There's a lot
juicy.
of 'em.
Yeah.
I almost brought a picture.
did.
There's one on the wall downstairs, if you ever seen our family reunion, it's down in that one room. I am one of the little boys, the only one still living on it, but it was a Thanksgiving, and we were in the front porch of my aunt and uncle's house. And I just can't explain to people, but I know them all yet, from their faces, I can tell you their names. I can't even remember my own grandchildren's names, but I know all
Wow.
the names there.
So how often did you see your cousins when you were younger? Did you all get together as
Yeah.
a family? Did they all live in the same community?
Yeah, all live close by. There's some from Breeze. There was some I didn't know. Then the biggest part of them were from Highland residents.
Okay.
And, well, they're all dressed up. One cousin has a dress with a bow about that big on her. But we were a close family.
You must have been.
Yeah, I went to stay overnight, and the one in the Breeze had a girl about my age, so I stayed overnight, or she came to Highland and visited, and I don't know, just we're a close family.
Yeah.
A lot of them on there.
So and your family obviously was a big family too.
Uh-huh,
So do you remember your aunts and uncles and
yeah.
Did-
I was trying to think, guess there was 9 children. My mom was 9 kids,
mm-hmm.
and
Wow.
of course, each one of them had a few, and there were significant others there that weren't in the family yet. They're on this picture, and
Oh, I'd say
the older had friends. So, but we were all together, and we stayed close till the weddings,
Mhm.
and grandchildren started coming. We all knew
Mhm.
each other's grandchildren, and
wow. So do you remember how many times a year? I mean, what occasions would everybody get together?
Didn't get that whole family because it was too big to do this, and didn't have the place.
Yeah.
It was in my aunt and uncle's house, but the picture was taken on the front porch. And but we saw some of them for some time all year long.
Oh, okay.
I stayed with my aunt and uncle
That's only yeah.
a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I think cousins and that, I know, we used to go down to my grandparents, my dad's parents, on Friday night. And then all the brothers would bring their kids, we saw each other, a lot,
Yeah,
and played together. And today
Mhm.
people don't even know their close relatives. I mean, they never see them.
That's true. And the saddest part is they don't even care.
No, they don't care.
They don't, yeah, I go out of my way to visit my uncles when I go to Cincinnati, but their kids and I don't, I haven't seen most of my cousins, and, I visit my uncles, but I don't see my cousins and my,
Yeah,
very
it's
often.
different.
It's a different world.
Mm.
So, but and you speak, you had these family events, and they take pictures at the family events. You talked about some of your
Well,
pictures.
this one picture that I got in mine is a big picture, and I see a few pictures, but most of them were posed pictures. This was a family picture. You were supposed to take, everybody had sit
Yeah.
in their chair, and
They had to sit
Well,
up.
they
and
didn't have cameras in those days so much,
Right.
oh no.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Well-
taking pictures all the time.
Yeah,
But
a
they never
picture.
get them developed anymore and put them in an album. They keep them on that thing. Who's
Mhm.
gonna see them unless you show them personally?
That-
Right, you tell them.
No,
I had a camera, took pictures all the time. I had 6 children.
yeah,
And when I got ready to leave out there, or even before that, I had an album for each one of the children, each one of the grandchildren, and each
Mhm.
one of the great-grandchildren.
That's great.
Wow.
From the time they were born until the present day.
is that right?
Because I always had my camera and took pictures no matter what we had. If we had a birthday party or
Wow.
Christmas or anything.
That's, you
And
know,
the kids, they made the, I remember that. We was at your house. I said, yeah, I took your picture.
oh, and that's a memory that will stay in the family
Mhm.
forever.
That's
You're
better
right.
than any
But
gift.
who's gonna take care of it? I got album after album, and I don't know where I'm gonna go with this when I have to go to a nursing home or to.
Yeah,
That's what I did when I came here. I
That's
gave, that Christmas before I came here, I gave every one of them their albums.
that's a good idea.
I had
Is
a bookcase that had children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I had their albums sitting in there with their name on the year they were born.
Mm,
That's,
you did good, girl.
And
Yes,
They
yes.
they really remarked it. They wish I was still doing it now. I said, well,
I don't have
my camera
pictures.
anymore.
I don't
Yeah.
have pictures at all, but I got a genealogy,
mm-hmm,
names,
Yeah.
birth dates and all that.
yeah. Well, it's really something, because, yeah, my grandmother was the picture taker of the family, and the poor thing, she was never in the pictures, right?
No,
Mhm.
I'm not in the pictures.
Yeah, you probably weren't in a lot of the pictures, but she took the time to write the, you know, the names and the people, and especially for the pets. There could be 10 people, but if there was a dog, she'd write the name of the dog. But yeah, but you're right, she wasn't in a lot of the pictures. But back then, you had to get your film developed,
Mhm.
you know. Then you got to go pick up the film, and you know, you
Yeah, I didn't
sort.
send them off, and I always took them.
Yeah.
At that
Yeah.
time, Bagley's had a place here in town, and I got them developed. Later, I went to Walmart and had them developed.
Yeah, later, that was one of the best services Walmart ever came up with, is that, you know. But no, my wife and I, because we live with our smartphones and our camera, you know. So, but we've started a tradition, and I like this tradition, that on the December 31st every year, on New Year's Eve, we sit down, I put together a slideshow of the things we've done during the year. Okay, and that is a really nice, I think it's a really nice idea. But what I forget, though, I never take one picture of something, I take 10. I could be taking a picture of Betty, and I'm sitting there just, oh, that's not quite the right angle, that's not the right, you know. So when it comes to putting this slideshow together, I've got to go through 1,000 pictures to get 50. So that's the way. But the kids, you know, I don't think, you know, I've got to make sure that I leave those pictures to my daughter, because she's not going to know what's on my phone and what's on my computer. So, you know, and the other thing is that the family picture. When you took your family pictures, you guys probably got dressed up, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know, so. Yeah, that's, you know, and that's a special thing. You remember what you were wearing. You know what each other's wearing. You know. On my last trip to Cincinnati, my uncle is 88 years old. You know, and we were going through some of his pictures, some of the family pictures. But about 40 years ago, he was at one of these family picnics, and he decides not to wear his shirt. So we have a picture of 30 or 40 people, and there's my Uncle Earl without his shirt.
Right in the front row.
And he is still to this day so embarrassed. He can't look at the, you know. But back then he was young, and he was a stud, and he was cool. But you know, so you know, I always remember. You know, you remember that this goofy hats that some people would wear, and my uncles were all these jokesters, right? So one of them would be wearing a goofy shirt, and it's funny at the time, but you know, when you're 90 years old, you look back, it's not quite. You feel a little silly. Okay, next. Now, Maurice, how do you pronounce it? Is it Maurice?
Maurice.
Maurice. Okay,
M-A-R-I-E-C.
yes,
Maurice.
I knew. I got the spelling of Maurice. Okay, I'll go Maurice. Your turn.
Well,
These are the stickiest deck of cards I've got.
what are your family ethnic origins?
Ooh,
German.
German.
Strictly German.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma and grandpa's name was Hanser, Hanser.
Mhm.
That'll tell you something.
Yes. Yeah.
And my father, on my dad's side, was Iberg, I-B-E-R-G.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
So that's just what it was.
where did they live? Where
They lived out, that's what I was starting to say a while ago, by this Geiger school. That's a here yet today.
Okay.
You know, we lived out there, and then my dad was on the board out there and everything. Back in those days, it was all different, you know, we had picnics, school picnics and stuff like that all the time.
Okay.
But there was 5 of us kids, and I was the youngest. And my oldest sister never got married, and she was teaching at Grand Forks School when I was born. So, she rode her bicycle from Grand Forks School to Highland, and she threw that up to me to see her baby sister, she'd always say. And she really did, because it was something that was a big thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
So, yeah, but that's just kind of the way our family was.
That's good. You know, so to talk about your origins. So do you remember? Did they talk? Did your parents and grandparents talk about what it was like? Life was like in Germany. How much German
Yes.
influence do they have?
Because my grandpa Hanser, but see, they were all, the grandpa Hanser's family was born in Germany, and then he came over, I think it was at 16, if I got it right. And then he married a lady who was an Ibert from Germany, and so, you know, that it kept that German origin in our family all the time.
Okay. So did you ever go to Europe? Did you ever go to visit Germany?
I never did. I
Mhm.
never did, because I was always working.
Mm-hmm. So, but are there any traditions, German traditions that you had, you know, that you recall that were handed down? That your parents said, we do this because that's what they do in Germany? Or?
Yeah, baked Schnitzbrot.
Schnitzbrot, that's what you ate.
Schnitzbrot, that's the
Yeah.
old German.
Yeah.
I know, gosh, I make that all the time, Schnitzbrot.
And is that a dessert?
It was a bread,
Yeah.
you know, and you all know what Schnitzbrot is.
Okay.
No, I don't know,
Red
'cause I'm
apples.
not German, but
Red
I've heard
apples
the
and-
word a lot.
It's definitely German, I mean,
Yeah.
it just really is, and it's really good. Yeah, we had Schnitzbrot all the time.
Did you?
Also like cookies.
Brot is bread.
Basilaclis, that's another
Oh,
one.
yeah, that's another.
Brot is
yeah.
bread, and schnitz is
I like
snip it
them.
up.
Oh,
Schnitz,
Schnitzbrot.
schnitz, brot is bread, and schnitz is you snipped up a lot of fruit or something in it, didn't it?
Well, yeah,
Dried fruit,
dried fruit went in it.
Mm-hmm.
that's where.
Because
That's
didn't
a German
Ripley
name,
Bakery
that's a
make
German
that?
name.
Huh?
Ripley's Bakery used to make that.
That's right, Ripley's did,
Oh.
because
Yeah.
see, they had German
They always
background.
had it at the bakery.
Ripley
I was
was
just gonna say, the
German
bakery right
background.
across from the fountain there,
Mhm.
they used to have that.
The German
And
stuff.
Basilaki. Oh,
Basilaclis, they had the
I
best
always made them for
basilaclis.
Christmas.
yeah.
My mom did too.
Mm-hmm.
so were those for holidays, or were they special occasions,
For
or?
holidays.
They were
Well, it
mainly
took a lot of
holidays,
fruit and all that. It was
Yeah.
an expensive cookie, you
We used to
know.
start
So-
about the middle of November to start making Christmas cookies.
Mhm.
Really?
Make maybe
Put a
seven.
little wine or whiskey in there after that, please.
You know.
We used to have table boards on the backs of 2 chairs, and that's where then Mama laid the cookies all the time to dry, and
Dry and
so we
cool.
could put them away in a, yeah,
Did you snip them? Sneak some?
every now and then.
Did you?
You could see
I
me
know
doing
I
that,
would.
couldn't you? I liked to eat back then too.
Yeah, I know I would if all those cookies. My mom baked cookies, but not those German ones.
Yeah.
I used to love to go to my grandmother's, and she was making noodles, and she'd, you know, have them rolled out, and then she put a paper over the backs of the chairs
That's
around the
right.
table, and that's how she put them over there to dry. And then when they were dry, she'd cut those like that, you know, if she wanted a wide noodle or a narrow noodle. Now you get them in bags, you know.
Yeah, you don't know where they come from. They come from a bag.
Dumplings, all.
Yeah. we had to roll
The amount of time it just takes to make one batch of cookies, or, yeah. Now, do your grandparents, do you remember speaking German? Did your
Yeah.
grandparents continue to speak German? Because they had to have a strong
Yes, they
German.
did, they did, and he had an old Packard, I'll never forget it, I wish I had pictures of it, I know my sister's got some of his old Packard car that they had
Packard
back
car,
then,
yeah.
remember that? They had that rumble suit thing in the
Oh,
back.
gosh, yes, rode in it.
Yeah, see, all the old
You-
people did ride in it.
Oh,
They did.
yeah.
So you rode in a rumble seat?
Not in that particular
What?
truck, but my husband, when he came back from World War II, he bought an
Oh.
old Model A and it had a rumble
Rumble
seat.
seat.
Oh, yeah,
Wow.
in the back. It just kinda opened up, didn't it?
Yeah.
You were out in the elements.
Yeah,
You're
I
big.
rode
Yeah.
over to Breeze
Yeah.
too, one, I can remember with an uncle, he sat on the, he and I sat in the swivel seat, and his wife and his brother-in-law in the front,
Mhm.
and we rode over to Breeze for dinner. Some special, I guess, you know, and I was all dressed up and had a great big bow in my hair.
Oh, Benny, did you
And
wear
you lost
those
the
too?
bow.
Yeah,
Every
and
picture
then
I had,
I
big
was-
bowls.
the wind blew it out.
That was gonna
It
say,
really-
Yeah.
your hair could not look the same once you got where you
Oh,
were.
no. Uh-uh.
Wow, you know, well, they don't make rumble seats anymore, do they?
No,
no,
You'd
they
you'd have to have safety, you had to have
Well,
harness,
they-
Yeah,
you'd have to have a
yeah.
harness, and then a helmet.
In World War II, when he came back, and he bought one, of course it was used, but
Yeah,
I
'cause
don't
see-
know, we were talking about, we wondered when they quit making them.
Right,
I'm not
Rumble
sure.
Well, you
seats.
still see them in movies once in a while.
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Although I don't see many people riding in the back of, you know,
No.
so,
My brother was in World War II too, and then when he came home, he had one, and I remember riding in that one.
Yeah.
You know, it was old then,
yeah,
but he'd take me and he'd give me a ride in that.
Well, there
Right.
weren't too many cars available, and after
No.
when the boys came home, you pretty well bought
Had to wait
what
in
was
line too
available.
or
Yeah.
something.
Right.
You know.
Best.
yeah, that's true too, you didn't have a
Because
selection
two
that they
people
have
rode in the
today.
front and two in the rumble seat in the back if
Mhm.
you had a family.
Yeah.
And the kids would probably fight over who was gonna ride.
Oh,
the
yeah,
rumble
everybody
seat.
wanted to ride. Well, it was just my brother and I. We didn't have one, but I remember, as I said, when we did, Jay and I did,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But we didn't have it when Brenda and them came along. He, you know, wanted to motorize us, so we got an old Model A then that had.
Uh-huh.
I tell you, one time, it was here with our church. They said they was gonna go. I belonged in a club then. My husband had passed away, but I joined 4x4 club. 4 people, you know, belonged in the club, and we'd go places. Well, we were going to go to this antique store. Why, I got there, I knew everything. That wasn't antiques to me.
that was,
There was the
real
washing
stuff.
machine, you know, there was the board, you know.
And grandma has one of them.
Yeah.
Mom had one of that.
Well,
We're using
I said to one of the young kids that was with me, they had some of their families with it, well, I used all that stuff. You did?
that is, yeah,
Yeah,
I know one word you don't use when you travel to Europe or England is antique.
you don't use
You
that.
talk
word.
about antiques over there, they laugh at you. That you show them that something that's 100 years old, they show you something that's 1,000 years old.
1,000 years old.
Oh.
You know, they don't even use, I don't even know if they even use antique. They show you castles. It's like,
Yeah.
they don't wanna hear that, you kids using the word antiques. But,
My mom and I look back today and it's a wonder she didn't blow herself up. Well, really, because the other farm ladies around us did the same thing. My mom had an iron that she would pump it up, but it had gasoline in it. Remember those?
Oh, I remember buying
Lord.
them.
Yeah.
What?
And it's some, yes, and that thing would be burning while she would be ironing. Oh, yeah.
The fumes.
Oh, yeah, the fumes.
as-
That's what it said. It's a wonder. Now I look back now. It's a wonder I had a mom all the long, very long. But then she wasn't the only one using them. You were really up in the world if you
It
had.
little thing on the back of the iron, didn't it?
Yeah.
And what?
it
Had a little
had
gadget
screw
on
on
it.
it.
Yeah, that's what I
gasoline.
said.
Mhm.
Yeah, but she pumped it up too to get it going. You know, I wasn't allowed to use it.
I don't see, you were
That's one
lucky.
time I didn't do the ironing.
I don't know how your clothes would not smell.
Smell from gasoline.
Oh, it smelled of gasoline, but we
But-
used it, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
I was never around, I know what you're talking about, but I never had, and my mom never had one of them.
well, they
Talking
did,
about where you pump that up and that, yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
pumped it up.
you know, I can imagine thinking back how important the importance inventions, but before the iron, what did your mother have?
Flat irons.
Yeah,
Oh,
the one
oh.
that you put on the heating stove and heat it.
Yeah.
It had a clamp-on handle.
Yeah,
When it was
So,
hot, you put the handle on it, you go and iron. When it got cold, you open it.
yeah, put it on the stove.
Put it
In
on.
fact, my son,
wow,
his wife was so fascinated with him when they got married that I gave him to him, and they kept the irons on their fireplaces wherever they were. And then one day, well, I don't know who got the brilliant idea, but they was going to paint them. Well, that sort of took the value down.
Yeah.
Painted the iron.
Yeah.
And was using it more as a decoration. Well, nobody was using
Oh, they
it.
do, they used to use the
Yeah, and they were
decoration.
using them for door stops.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
A
Well, yeah.
doorstop.
They still have them
Yeah.
today. Oh, no.
We
no.
didn't have electricity till I was 8 years old, so we used iron like that all the time.
We didn't have electricity till I moved to town, or where my family moved to town. While we were up
My
in the
mom
world, we
used
had a
that
whole
for
bathroom.
iron if something got
Didn't have to
little
go
wrinkled.
outside.
I didn't wanna get the
Talk
other
about major
stuff out,
inventions for
put it on
bathroom
the
people.
stove, you know, then, and it-
I tell
Get the
you,
wrinkle
I
out,
used
put
to
it
help
on,
him.
go.
I got so mad at my dad. I made a sign one time, didn't go very far. When a man comes in and washed in the basin in the bathroom, they don't know what it is to take a paper towel and wipe it out.
We didn't have any paper towels.
I don't think they probably
They
still
didn't have
do.
the paper towels.
Well, no, whatever they had there,
Yeah.
you're right. Well, they did have some napkins that are coming in to stop, but anyway, I made a big sign one time and put it up in the bathroom. When I knew my dad was coming in from the garage, that he was gonna clean up for lunch. Well, he laughed, he saw it and laid it aside and laughed. He had a sense of humor like I do. He laughed. I knew better than to say anything to him, because after all, then you respected your parents, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
Oh, my gosh.
but anyway, that was my job, to keep the bathroom clean.
That would be that
Well, you were trying to do a good job.
dirty, that's the
I
dirty.
remember when we
Didn't
didn't
work.
have a bathroom,
I was just
we
gonna
always
say.
kept the pot behind the bedroom door.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
had to get up during the night, you could use that, you didn't have to go out to the outside toilet.
This is worse yet. We had
Yeah,
this
that's
farmhouse.
well worth it,
Yeah,
yeah.
right at the top of the steps was that pot. And whoever got up at night used it.
Oh,
But whoever used it had to empty it the next morning.
Oh, yeah, well.
really?
You had to empty it every day.
Of
So
course, they
they,
had a lid on it, they had.
Yeah.
Oh, it had a
but-
lid on it, and not only that, but you prayed you didn't stump your toe going down the steps.
I know.
Oh, it was wonderful living back then.
Oh, I bet it sounds, yeah, that's what, they call it the good old days?
Yeah, good old days, right.
Well, I know what would happen in my family. I bet half of us wouldn't admit using it.
Well, it was better going out to the outhouse
Exactly.
in cold weather.
I bet, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I didn't.
There was one lady that came here, Maurice, remember her? She had these, all these different style outhouses. She showed us pictures. She had stationery
yeah, I
and
forgot about
everything.
that.
Remember her? And she made this statement, and I can't hardly believe it. Those of us that lived back those days, her dad would not let them have one of those we called them slop jars back in those days.
Slop jars?
He would not. They had to get up regardless of the weather
Outside.
and go out. I said, no, my dad didn't do that.
Oh, Lord,
There
in the
was
middle
some-
of the night and snow and everything.
Yeah.
Especially when you're pregnant.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that would
my
be pretty
gosh, you're
good.
right. And if you're sick
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. And Mom, you said one time, she said, it was just my brother and I, and we always seemed like had to go to the bathroom after supper, dark. Mom would take one of us and to come in the other. She said, I know you're a male and female, but one of these days you're both gonna go at the same time. We were small, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
my,
Lord.
that is something else.
The good old
And the
days.
outhouse always had a stool, this one was high, and then there was a little one over here, I mean, at the whole end, where
Mhm.
you sit. So the little kids could use this one, and the bigger ones, mom and dad could use this one.
Even that was probably a nice invention at the time.
Absolutely, and a lot of times there was no toilet paper, we used the catalog.
That's
Oh,
what-
yeah.
that is-
Montgomery Ward catalog.
Yeah, you always
Sears
roll through the, for
The
the
Sears
advertisement
mo-
pages, they were so.
Yeah, you really.
Yeah.
You remember Esther Roman? We nearly got in trouble about it.
Oh, my
We were
goodness.
laughing.
We are
She said
going
the
back.
Well, you're going back, but
It's always left.
I'm telling you, it still doesn't sound very
Sound
comfortable.
like her. You didn't hear what I said. She
What?
said out of the catalog, we had a lady that lived here for a while. She was so funny. We got to talking about that one time at the table. She and I practically got in trouble because another lady was over here, way over, didn't have a sense of humor. She reported us to Maurice that we were too noisy. But anyway, Esther said when in the Montgomery Ward catalog got down, the slick pages was always left. And she said, that's the one you took out and wrinkled.
Yeah, you take it and waddle
We
it all
went
like this,
to
make it
the
softer.
aunt's
so
house and
you
had
get
an
white.
outdoor,
That-
we got out there and she took the time to take her, I guess it was Reader's Digest, and she folded each page and it looked like a fan.
Oh, my.
No, but then later on, before we got flooded out, Daddy built, I don't know, chicken coops and several buildings together. And, oh, this is gross. He he fixed us a toilet on the inside of that, and nobody could see. We had an outhouse from the road. No,
Okay.
yeah. And this is the gross part. The thing where the material, where you want to call it from, is would slide out. He'd take it to the field and dump it out, clean it up and put it back in. And then that kept the smell down.
You better believe it.
Yeah,
We always put limestone down too.
yeah, limestone, we use that a lot.
Yeah.
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 Here comes Robert.
There comes Bob.
Well, there's
Oh, you
Bob.
missed out on a good one.
Yeah, we could have taught you something today, Bob. You know what, Maurice? I totally forgot what your question was. This was your.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dear.
I don't remember.
I don't. Who remembers what this is? This it?
German. She was
Yeah,
German. She was
but-
German.
So, and then I asked, and
What's your,
The origin of her.
What did you ask me?
I don't know. But the question I had though, then I started asking about the German, speaking German. You know, how many of your grandparents
My
spoke?
mom and dad did all the time. When they
Okay.
wanted to talk about somebody in the neighborhood, or somebody was pregnant or something.
Or
they talk-
Christmas.
Yeah,
Christmas
they
time.
talk German to each other. I sit there and listen to them. What are they saying? What are they saying? What are they saying?
Yeah. So, but did they insist? Then apparently they didn't insist that you learn German.
No,
no,
no. Every once in a while I could pick up a word they were talking, or who they were talking about.
Yeah.
I never did
Yeah.
talk German.
Yeah, I know.
Did you learn any German at all?
I said, way back when, I could say a few words in German, but I, never that I was fluent with
there's a
it
few
at
cuss
all.
words that the kids caught on to.
Yeah, that was just as a slang or something like that. But the reason I'm curious about that, because I know I don't know a whole lot of people that had grandparents, but the ones I do know, the grandparents refused to teach their kids
Yeah.
German.
Yeah.
They wanted when you come to this country, they expected you to
Yeah.
learn
Yeah,
English.
to learn
Stop,
English.
you know, and so there wasn't a lot of dual, you know, what do they call it?
You're living here now and you don't want to,
Yeah,
you know, do
which
that.
There was different, there was high German and low German.
Oh, yeah, my
dad was
Yeah.
from Germany.
Low Dutch, they call it.
well,
Yeah, Low Dutch.
I've also heard in Switzerland they spoke something like 4 or 5 languages.
Yeah.
Yes. Which other country they were closest to, they spoke,
Right. That's
Well,
Did-
that's why I don't have it.
whatever
either.
they. I don't know how. I don't know. They had a name. They had a name for each.
down for France, French.
French,
They spoke French, they
Yeah.
spoke German,
Dutch.
they spoke Italian,
Yeah.
down by the Italy.
Mhm.
And then they had one, they called their own language, they called, I think maybe the High Dutch or something like that, they called it one of them. There was 4 different
Mhm.
languages in just the one country.
Okay.
But they were next to the, you know, just like
When he went around St.
the
Louis,
French,
he taught Low
yeah,
Dutch.
the French,
It did it.
French.
Low
spoke
Dutch.
French and
Okay. I've never heard of high
I
and
never-
low.
I never did know it.
Yeah.
Well, out there where I lived, you know, my dad and then the neighbors, they get together, they just rattle off in German all the time.
Yeah, well, I
It
bet
was
they
just-
did, yeah.
It was just a common thing, they just
Yeah.
did.
Right.
And then, what I picked up back in those days, I learned a little bit, but I knew what they were talking about, but basically I didn't.
well, like that Schnitz broke that. I
Schnitz
broke
broke
it
that.
down, Schnitz, because you cut up the little snip.
That's as German as you get when you talk about
And
schnitzel.
broke as bread, I knew that, that I could pick out if they said.
My grandma did that all the time, she baked the best schnitzels, you know, it was just a common thing back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
So.
your own apples, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah,
So-
see, we had a bunch of apple trees on our farm,
Mhm.
and so they had, Mom always used them too.
You know, one time my dad, he was a building contractor and he had, you know, men working for him. And so, one man and my dad, they were Bohemian. And that's why they, you know, they'd rattle off in Bohemian, but they had to stop it because the other men thought they were talking about them. They really weren't, they were just, and my dad really got pretty good at Bohemian, but with the two of them, you know, in exchanging the Bohemian language, and they had to, because I think one of them said something to my dad, And he said, oh, no, he said, we're just, you know, things that we talk about, we're not talking about any one person. So they had to quit that, you know, because they thought they were being, spoken badly about maybe.
Mhm.
And they didn't want that, you know.
You know, that's,
I can see, you know, like, well, you know, you were talking like that, I wonder what they're saying about us.
I'm very sensitive, and maybe too sensitive about it. When I go to a Mexican restaurant and the service,
Yeah.
they're talking Mexican, I think
That's
they're talking
bad
about
down
me.
south.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
In Texas.
And are they really? I can imagine, yeah. But I bet in some cases they do talk about you. You know,
I'm sure they do.
so.
But you notice there, my name is Brant, but there's no D in it.
Mhm.
Talk about Americanizing. That's my husband's side of the family.
Okay.
That when Grandpa Brant came over from Germany, he took the D out to Americanize it.
Did he do that, or did
No, he did it and got by with it.
Well, I heard a lot of that happened when they came over. They come the first time. The names got shortened, didn't they, and changed?
Yeah, my grandparents did that. My great grandpa came over from Germany, and he was only 12 years old. And his name was spelled Hentz. Hentz.
Okay.
When he signed in, he made it different. He pronounced it Henss. Hentz.
Yeah, so he changed it too. That's what they said, Grandpa Brant. He purposely left the D out.
Yeah.
Did he say why?
Yeah, he wanted to Americanize it.
Okay.
He
So-
came over from Germany.
Right. And at the time, was there a fear of being recognized as a German? That was the next question I had, was about, do you remember your grandparents talking about the wars at all?
Yeah.
Did they talk about the war?
I think that's why Highland was so Swiss. There was
Yeah.
there was a lot of German there, but they tagged it onto the Swiss so that there wouldn't be any, you know, people call them Germans.
Right. Well, I've done research, historic research on that. There was an absolute panic about being German in this country during the wars, because people were, their properties were being their stores were being destroyed, their products would be destroyed, you know, because of the hatred. So.
My dad's family, they lived, you know, in the same area, but it was two different families, and what they did, they could never get their mail. So one of them took the H's out, and they went S-A-S-E-K, and then the other family went S-H-A-S-H-E-K. Because they never could get their mail, it was all mixed up, and they were tired of that, and so this family said, we're taking the H's out, I don't know, they just did it. And then the other family kept it the way it originally was.
Okay, so that's something I wasn't aware of, because I always had the impression that when people came over on the boat and they stopped at Ellis Island, is that where Ellis Island? I thought it was the government, our government, that changed the names, but apparently it was the individual.
Individual.
It was,
Yeah, they just did it themselves, I guess you didn't have to pay any attention to it.
and the first thing they would do is just shorten.
Yeah, shorten the name, take some, like they took the H's out, they left it in, the way it was originally,
Mm-hmm.
so they could get
One
their
of my
mail.
grandparents'
I
name
get-
was Rudolph, and that was spelled a couple different ways.
Mhm.
Frederica was my grandma's first name,
Okay.
and every time she wrote it, it changed.
Oh, really?
Well, this was the last name, you know. this-
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That was it. Well, you know.
But you talk to someone from Belleville, 3/4 of them have the D in it. And if I go somewhere, especially in that area, and ask my name, I have to tell them to leave the D out.
Oh, really? Oh, that's okay. If you had a legal spelling that you
Yeah,
needed.
the legal name is B-R-A-N-T, but I still get a lot of mail. My husband's different one, it has the D in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're mentioned genealogy before. You know, once you get back to that time where your grandparents and great grandparents came over, that's when it's hard to find out
Yeah,
the family, because the name is different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know. So.
not only that, but genealogy, my son was trying to do it, but he got in the service and he kind of quit it. But anyway, he would get to a certain point, the doctors did not register the babies
No.
in those days.
No.
We like to never got Mr. Brandt's Social Security, Jay's dad,
Right.
because he could go so far to prove, but somebody had a family Bible and they took that to get
Really?
his Social Security.
That was in the
He wasn't registered in Illinois at all of being born.
So do you remember how they even assigned social security numbers? I mean, when did that come about? Yeah, I mean,
85.
I don't know.
you know, so you don't get assigned a social security number when you come over on the boat.
I don't
No,
know.
no,
No?
not now, not then.
So somewhere, I get, and so I get that had to be a little tricky too. You had to prove where you're from, but you can't, you know.
I guess you have to be a citizen of the country.
Right.
I don't know,
And I guess back in the early days, that they accepted whatever you
Yes.
told them.
I guess.
So,
I don't know.
yeah. Any other conversations anybody remember any conversations about the war that their grandparents would
No,
talk about?
I don't think they talked about that.
Actually, the reason I asked these questions is my wife is German. Her mother was German, and my wife was brought over into this country when she was 2 years old, and in the arms of her single mom. You know, just escaping. It wasn't necessarily she just left Germany, but her mom has so many horrid memories. You know, of still blood in the streets and all that, you know, the horrible stuff, you know. But, you know, my wife was never allowed to speak German, never allowed to talk about German. You know, that's what
Yeah, I think they were pretty.
so. Well, Maurice, let's go back. Your question was, what are your family ethnic origins? So we stayed on topic a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, that's good.
Yeah, it's the seed, the rumble seed. So just for that, now you get to pick a card.
I get to-
Mimi? Yeah. No, I gotta take these two off. You don't look at, yeah, okay. There you go.
Okay,
I guess it's my job to keep us on topic, isn't it?
yeah.
So good luck with that.
Oh, what family pets did you have, and we had so many of them on the farm that Daddy kind of turned them into, they were pets. One of the pets that we had the cows on what we call the levee. We had to go, and Daddy ordered this, a shepherd, a black shepherd, and wavy hair. I don't know just what the whole origin of the dog was, but anyway, Daddy trained him to go get the cows. Yeah, and when it get close to that time, that dog knew it was getting time to go get those cows, and he'd get them. Yeah, he'd go out and want to go to the gate, and then John and I, my brother, we would go and turn him loose in there, and first thing you know, the levee, you know, was down this way. Here would come the shep behind him, and the cows would become milk cows. They would be coming up.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what Daddy paid for him, but back then, I'm sure in the Depression days, it was quite a little sum.
That's right.
And we had him for about 5 or 6 years. And all at once he disappeared. Well, Dad reported it, and this sheriff was not surprised. There were people going around picking up dogs, and they took that dog someplace and resold him, is what's happened. But we got him as a pup,
Okay.
so he wasn't a stolen dog. Daddy got him through the mail.
I'll bet.
And that dog was so friendly with my brother and I, and protective also. Then, as I said, and it was kind of like after he brought the cows in the summertime, and they were in the lot where they were supposed to be, he'd go over and lay down in the shade.
He did his job.
He had done his
Oh, I'm
job.
feeling proud.
But he did not bark, though. He wasn't a dog to let you know anyone was on the premises. That he didn't do. No.
He knew what his job was. And that's
Yeah, his job was getting the cows and kind of being with John and I, and he was kind of that way.
Right.
But but then back then you didn't have too many. Well, you did have some bums. We called them bums coming down.
I remember the
But
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
You had a farm. You probably had lots of
Oh.
bums.
And they come in the city though too.
And my mom was the best hearted, God love her,
Yeah.
and they always had to come in and sit
No,
at
my
the table
grandma
all the time. And Dad used to say, you know, Mom, why don't you take the food out and give it to him on the porch? Yeah, who wants to eat on the porch? Everybody was welcome at his table. He didn't.
My grandma made sandwiches. I don't know if it's true or not, if you heard it or not, but I heard it growing up, that those people had a way of marking the
Marking
houses.
the houses that they
Did
knew
you hear
to be
that?
absolutely- Oh, yeah, my
That
mom
would give
always said
them,
that.
give them.
Yeah.
And some of the neighbors were passed on by, but grandma's, oh no. They always stopped at Grandma's house.
That she
Yeah.
invited them in. My mom never invited them in, but we had.
No, Grandma didn't invite them in.
And
No,
there
mine
were
didn't
umbrella
either.
repairs, and there were, and we lived about 3 blocks from the railroad.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I guess they came in on the
On the train?
Yeah.
train, and
Yeah.
I had
and
that,
she
my
she
mom
would
had
wash
that
out a
too.
tin can
Did they?
and put coffee in it and make a sandwich or with bread
Yeah,
and jelly or something that she had. And
But
they'd
we
go
had,
on.
yeah, we had a bone that came through periodically. And they nicknamed him Charlie Two Hats. Now, why that guy wore 2 hats at one time, I never did get to the bottom of it. But he wore 2 hats all the time. And he
Charlie
always
Two
stopped.
Hats.
Probably had a cold head.
And
Did he
was-
have any pictures of his hat? I'd like to
No,
see that.
not back then. But
Didn't
did
have
he
no
have-
cameras then.
We don't know why he did, or his grandpa and them knew. My brother and I didn't pick up on it. But we just remember seeing him come up the road, and he'd have 2 hats and come to Grandma's house.
Wow.
Mhm.
Without you
Then
would
they
not
would
forget
get, they
something
would
like
go
that.
on the levee, that would go on in and catch a train.
Mhm.
Right. So you mentioned marking who marked the house? Did the family mark the house?
No,
No.
no, they did.
They
The-
did, they knew where
the-
they got the good food.
And they were,
Yeah.
were they called bums, or what were they called?
Yeah,
And
the
then
bums.
hobos.
Hobos?
Or
Hobos.
Hobos, yeah.
Yeah.
bums,
And so the
yeah.
hobos marked the houses?
They knew
That was a
Did
good
you-
house to go to if you want something
where they
to
would
eat.
get food.
Yeah. My mom said the same thing, but
And-
she'd sometimes, she'd
You
say,
always heard
I
that.
can only give you a jelly bread sandwich. He said, that's fine. You know, they'd say
Right.
fine. And then they'd sit, you know,
You
like
always heard
under a
that, but did
tree
you ever
and
see
she'd give
a
him a
mark on
glass
a
of water
house?
maybe and.
No, I don't know what the,
I don't know
Yeah,
what
they
it
were
was.
happy.
It beats nothing, right? I mean, they were probably starving when they
Yeah,
stopped
they were
by.
hungry and they'd eat in, you know,
Yeah.
things.
I usually sit and talk with them while they're reading and find out where they were from.
They probably loved that.
No.
Well, they look at me like, you're awful nosy. And I'll say, well, I'm just a little kid. I'd like to know where you're from and where you're
Oh,
going. You know.
I can imagine
Did
you
it help?
doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Did you
Oh,
get
yeah.
that
And they tell me where they were going, where they're
No.
from.
I never asked.
They
any
always
que-
give me their first name, but they never give me a last name.
oh no.
Mm-mm.
But they give me, I'm Peter, I'm Harry, I'm Jake.
Did you ever have the impression that they were running from the law?
No.
I don't
Some
think
of
so.
them.
I think
No, they were
just
just
homeless.
down and out people.
Down and out,
They didn't
Yeah.
have a job and
Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
And they'd go where, with the weather too, you know,
And
like
this
in
is-
summer,
Right.
they'd be where it's warmer and,
Mhm.
you know, that,
we
No.
didn't have them during the wintertime when it was
No.
cold.
mm-mm,
And they had to be coming from the big city, I'm guessing.
I guess somewhere.
That's what someone.
St. Louis maybe from around, from
That's-
here or somewhere, I don't know.
You have some of those men
Well,
that,
I live between little towns. I live between St.
Exactly.
Jacob and Highland and Trenton.
That's true. That's a long way for them to make it all the way out
But
from
they,
the city.
they knew where the good food was at.
Well, see, there was a railroad track that ran across through, I was raised from, down in Chester, the prison, you
Mhm.
know, I mean, and there was a railroad track that would run through there. Well, wherever they came from, apparently, they would come there and then get on the levee and walk up and go to Grandma's house, and I don't remember the other house, but there were several there, and I know there were some that they didn't go to, and some they did. But then after they would leave our house, they'd get back on the levee, walk to St. Mary, hop a freight, and then go farther on, west.
Wow.
did you have some of those peddlers too?
Oh, yeah, peddlers. We had peddlers a lot.
They have what?
Selling-
Peddlers.
Oh,
Peddlers.
peddlers, oh, yeah.
Selling thread and stuff like that.
You know, I guess you have to give them credit. At least they were peddlers. They didn't
They were
just sit on a
peddlers.
street corner with a
No.
bucket.
Yeah,
They, you know, I'm not that I'm condoning it, but
Around, didn't
they figured out a way to get around, and it's even hopping a train and going from city to city. That's work.
Absolutely.
You
Well,
know?
yeah, and if the conductor happened to, or whoever was caught you,
Yeah.
they'd make you get off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
they
did-
told Grandpa that.
Yeah, I
or
got the.
wherever the train was gonna slow down, when they were coming into a town, you know, we
They'd
were
hop
kinda
off.
close.
Yeah.
And then you knew they'd get off there, they could get off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Without having any problem.
Yeah, the word probably got around.
Yeah.
You know, where it's safe to get off, and which conductors to
Yeah.
avoid.
Yeah.
But they had their own work to do too.
Yeah.
But they're human beings too.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to a hungry human
Yeah.
being. You
Well, my
know?
mom always fed him, you know, just a
Mm.
sandwich, or even if she had milk, she'd give him a glass of milk. And I think she'd say, maybe, you know, you wouldn't have them for a while. You'd have a couple days in a row.
Mhm.
So you figured that they all kind of got off. and then, you know, it was a different man the next day, and, you know, and
Right.
that, not, I don't know how they, if they marked it or not, but they probably did, said what color house or whatever it was.
Right.
And for, maybe a few days, you'd have, almost every day or every other day, you'd have somebody. Then for a long time, and maybe a weeks or two, you wouldn't have anybody, so you just knew that they kinda told each other, you know, well,
Right.
well, they'll feed you there, you know, or give
Wow.
you something.
Oh, yeah, they communicated.
It makes you wonder where they were going,
Yeah.
where they
Don't
stayed.
know,
You know, just hopping, waiting for the next train.
I
So-
guess.
Now, we were talking about pets back then. Do you remember your dog, the shepherd's name?
Yes, I had a little white poodle. Yeah.
White,
And I
you got a
kept-
white?
I kept him till for his old age, and then I was getting older, and we just never, Spitz was his name.
Spitz, okay.
Spitz was his name. Mhm.
Now, the question is, did your pets, your dogs stay indoors or outdoors?
No, they were outdoor dogs. My mom would not let them in the house.
Outdoor dogs.
I just,
Mhm. No.
I
Well,
remember,
Shep was a pretty large dog,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah,
But Daddy always had a place in another house of it where we housed our cars, and that there was a bed out there for them. They were not out in the elements,
mm-hmm,
you know, because they knew where to go when it rained or if it was cold and like that.
they were probably better off out, they probably knew exactly where, how to stay
Yeah,
warm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So that's an interesting point, though. It's as far as, I actually believe it was my generation that actually started letting these pets, you know, much to the disbelief of my father. You know, my mom would talk him into letting the dogs in the house, and
Yeah.
there goes the house.
No,
And
No,
you get
our
one-
dog had to stay in certain rooms. He could not go into the living room or the bedrooms and that. He could be in the kitchen and then the basement.
Mhm.
And I worked in, I would come home, I just worked over a lunch period, because the school was down the road. And I'd come home and I was tired, and and I had a throw rug from the kitchen to, like, into the living room. And I'd go and lay on the couch, you know, and take a nap. Well, he'd come there and he'd get as far as he could on that rug, because that wasn't in the living room, you know. It was a different texture. And he'd
Oh.
look around to see if I was on. Then he'd lay right down there, and while I'm napping, he's napping.
Oh.
It was so cute.
You gotta love dogs.
Yeah, but he could stay in the house, but just certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
No bedrooms, no living room or anything like that, just kitchen and basement and that type of thing.
Mhm.
But he was happy.
And they learned that real easy.
And no in my bed or anybody else's bed.
They do. They find
No.
their favorite person, their favorite beds. But well, it's been about 35 years ago. But I actually bought acreage outside of Cincinnati, in a country outside of Cincinnati, and the owner that sold the property to me didn't take his dog, and I thought it was pretty cruel. And it's a big dog too. It had a German Shepherd and Australian Shepherd and Collie mix in it. The guy didn't even say anything. He left his dog, you know, and this dog had never been in the house, ever. And I have to admit, I'm part of the generation that started, that's when it changed everything to the worse in this country, because we spoiled our pets. So I couldn't live with this dog. This dog was 10 years old and never been in a house. I couldn't stand that. I mean, I've said the poor dog. This dog was I literally, it took me weeks to get this dog. I tried to talk him into coming in the house. Come on, you know, it's okay. You know, Buster was the dog's name, long-haired dog. I could try to talk this dog into coming in the house. It would never come in the house. Okay, I literally came outside on the deck one time and picked him up and carried him into the house. And
I did that to a dog when it got so cold it wouldn't come in.
he wouldn't even come in when it was cold. Yeah, yeah.
Finally, he called him in and he stood by the door while we back out.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, they went by, you know, but the one day I took it even way too far. You know what? We got a couch that all my other dogs slept on this couch. So
You
this
can sleep there?
this 80-pound shepherd, I'm sitting there. I literally picked this shepherd up and put him on the couch. And from that moment on, this dog looked at me like, you know what? This is all right.
It's all right.
Beats the outside deck,
Is
right?
this in your married life or when you were born that you picked?
No, this is my married life.
Married life.
Exactly. So, and I was a city boy who bought a farm. That's it. And I used to cut 8 acres of grass with a riding lawnmower. And I didn't even have a tractor, didn't have any kind of farm equipment. So, but this dog, you know, was just that, he was that kind of dog. And, you know, but to the day when he died, 10 years later, the dog died. he literally insisted on going outside. He actually, well, you know, he would come and go out in and out, but when he was ready to pass along, he asked to go to the door, and he went out in the yard and died. Isn't that amazing? But I was curious. My guess would have been that you weren't allowed to have your dogs in the house back then. So, well, great. Well, thank you. Hey, Bob, do you want to try a question this week? You're awfully quiet back there.
Bob, I didn't see you back
Well,
there.
he came late.
Would you like to try? Are we out of time? I think we're out of time, aren't we?
Well, we got a few minutes.
We got a few minutes. Bob, you want to try a question? Or do you want to have a story to tell? You probably don't even need a question. You have something you want on your
I'll
mind?
tell you a story.
You want to tell me a story?
Uh-huh.
All right.
I had an old Volkswagen van. I just got rid of it a while ago. It was really pretty nice van in California. So we went on a Sunday school convention on Highway 101, which runs along the Pacific Ocean, up by Hearst Castle. You know where that's at? San Simeon.
I've heard it. Yeah.
And so I drove the van up there, and we had a sort of picnic and beach party on the Pacific Ocean there. And it all wound up, and so it was time to go home, and so I started towards Los Angeles. And as I was driving along, there was a hitchhiker. Well, I don't pick up hitchhikers. And so what was interesting is the little voice said, "You want to pick him up?" And I said, "I don't pick up hitchhikers." But the little voice said, "You should pick him up." And finally, after I drove right on by him and so on, I got tired of the little voice, so I pulled off and I drove all the way back on on the side streets, like we have here, the road on the other side of the main road. And I drove back, and I finally came around. And at that time, I had the van, and I had the 4 spiritual laws on the back of the van. And he evidently saw that when I was driving. And anyway, I stopped and I picked this young fellow up. And all he had was this attaché case, it wasn't very big and so on. And he got in, and we started to drive. And he opened up his attaché case, and what's the Jewish hat?
Oh, yarmulke?
Yeah,
Little thing?
put on his yarmulke, and he proceeded to tell me a lot about the Old Testament. And the interesting part of it was that I knew more about the Old Testament than he did.
You met the wrong person that day.
He was evidently coming from a commune up in Oregon. And evidently life had not worked out well for him. His parents didn't understand him, and his girlfriend had left him, and so on. And he was going back to Beverly Hills. And so he would tell me something out of the Old Testament, and I would say, wait a minute, that's not what it really says. It says this. And this guy just got fiery hot. And he took both fists and he just beat on the dashboard like that, and he said, no, stop. And so I stopped the van, and I said, you want to get out? And he said, you're not really that bad, we'll go a little further.
Wasn't so bad after all.
He needed a ride.
Now, what was interesting of it was in the process, in this whole process now, he told me he was the Messiah.
Oh, that's different.
And he had his book of life. And so we went through that thing about 4 or 5 times of the beating on the dash and the stomping
Messiah.
and so on between San Simeon and Beverly Hills. And so when we got to Beverly Hills and so on, we stopped, and he got out his little book of life, and he wrote my name in his book of life and so on. And he said that, you know, I will remember you when I come into my kingdom and so on. And I said, well, all right, you know. And so in the briefcase, he also had this big bag of cashews. Now, so he said, I appreciate the fact that you gave me a ride, and you're really a pretty nice fellow. And he said, and I'd just like to give you this bag of cashews. So he gave me the bag of cashews, and that was the last I ever saw of him. He went walking up Beverly Hills up into.
Wow.
And anyway, what was interesting of it was I had that bag of cashews, and I couldn't quite figure out what I was going to do with them, because I wasn't sure that those cashews wasn't laced with whatever. So anyway, I kept the bag of cashews for about 6 months, and then finally I said, why not? So I ate some of the cashews, and there was nothing wrong with the cashews.
Nothing wrong with them.
They were very good. So that's my story of how I picked up the Messiah.
Well, that's
picked up the Messiah.
you know, the lesson I'm learning is you must have learned too. What if you would have kicked the Messiah out of your car? I mean, that would have been
What was that?
your life would have changed if you would have kicked him out of your car,
Yeah, I
out of the
didn't have
van.
my name written in the book of life.
You made it. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't have nerve to tell him it was already in there. But
You know,
I'm just shocked that the Messiah's from Beverly Hills. I didn't imagine it that way.
yeah, you learn something every day.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you do. Well, as always, thank you very much.